Are we live?
Well, hey, Malcolm, you got to take time for yourself. So make sure.
Agreed.
Make sure you do.
Okay, it is 11 o'clock on Tuesday, February 1st, and I will call this Transportation Committee meeting to order. It appears as though we have an agenda. Can I get a motion for that?
I move to accept the agenda as presented. Oh, it looks like Scott might have an amendment here.
City Manager.
So we typically reaffirm, we should have had this on the agenda, but just to reaffirm the chair. I know you were the chair for transportation previously, but we typically the first year we either reaffirm or if we have to sign a new chair, we basically do that. Because
of the new.
Correct.
So it can that be our first agenda item, or can we?
It should be, correct.
Okay. So then can we?
How about I make a motion to accept the agenda as written of the chair assignment as the number one agenda item.
I'll second that motion. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so it is Tuesday, February 1st, and I will call this Lacey Transportation Committee meeting to order. We have an amended agenda, and our first agenda item will be to nominate a chair for this committee. Do you have any?
I would nominate Deputy Mayor Malcolm Miller.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none.
Well, I mean, you're pretty comfortable in your role, right? And
do you accept the nomination?
I have no issue bowing. What's that?
I asked if he accepted the nomination.
Yeah.
Yes, I accept your nomination.
Awesome.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, it has been moved and approved. Seeing no objection, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is the Lebanon Street update. And it appears as though we do have Martin with us. Hi, Martin.
Hi there.
Turning it over to you.
Let me share my screen. That's the old one, sorry. Can you see that one?
Yes, we can.
Great. As we talked about last time, we sent out another letter to the people that did not vote on Lebanon Street. We got almost as much as we did the first time. We're up to 60% total voting percentage now, in which we were 32% last time. And the total votes, 46% yes votes and 54% no votes. And the traffic calming policy requires 60% positive to go for permanent traffic calming devices. I got one more, and here's what the votes actually looked like. Green is yes, red was no, and the kind of beige ones are awaiting votes still. The last vote I received was on January 24th.
Robin?
I don't have the context for this. So what is the traffic calming measure that they're considering? Is it speed bumps or?
They're actually, what we have out there now is what we call twisted diverters. I should back up, sorry for that. You are new on this committee, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, what happened is in 2018, Community Development did the Depot District open house and asked for a bunch of feedback on that. Lebanon Street homeowners were at that meeting, and what they thought was, as part of the museum itself, we had the Lebanon Street extension, went between Lacey Boulevard and Pacific, and they believed that there would be a lot more cut through traffic with that extension being built. So we started talking to the neighborhood about putting in some traffic calming. And what we came up with was the twisted diverters, and could go back a little bit. COVID kind of messed us up a little bit on this one, because right in the middle, all traffic seemed to have stopped.
Martin, I have a photo I could share if you want.
I was going to go for the before and after speed and volume studies.
Well,
Robin, this stretch of road is like a 1/4 mile drag strip, and the residents feel like that's what it's being treated as. And so
In between 14th and 20th.
correct.
Yeah.
And so the speeds, the residents are not comfortable with the speeds that people are traveling on that road, and wanted us to address it.
Yeah.
So what we did is we had some previous speed studies before. The way our traffic calming policy works is that if there is speeding, what we call the 85th percentile, speeds are 30 miles, greater than 30 miles an hour, they're eligible for traffic calming. They did talk about speed humps. Long straightaway like that, they're not going to be very effective. What we typically see on long straightaway is about half the people slow down for them, and then they accelerate, which makes a lot of noise, and then the other half just drive right over them and give you that little thump all night long, which most people complain about. And the other thing that they tend to do, especially with roads without curbs, they tend to drive around them so they don't get into it. So speed humps themselves aren't a really good option. So you got the picture of that, Scott?
yeah. If you unshare, I'll go ahead and share a picture.
So what we did is we built some temporary twisted diverters, and we usually leave them out for a year and then see what the neighborhood thinks. And that's when we take a official vote per the traffic calming policy. And the numbers that I was showing earlier was the voting results from the neighborhood.
Right.
So this is the traffic calming policy adopted by council, which states upon completion of the test, the ballot will be mailed to the voting neighborhood. This vote will be to install a permanent traffic control device. The 60% majority is required for permanent installation. So they didn't even have 50%. So per the traffic calming policy, we'll remove the diverters and this will all go away.
Is the 60% of those that vote, or is it total people impacted?
Yes, of
Looked
those.
like it was total people impacted.
Yeah,
You're allowed to vote, yeah, but what we set up the neighborhood, and so the vote is based on the actual number of votes.
Yeah, okay. So we got enough people voting in this last round to satisfy the requirement, but we didn't get that level of support.
Correct.
So it appears, Councilmember Stedman.
Thank you. Was there a deadline to every, especially the people that never responded? Was there a deadline on the notice or anything like that? I wanted to make sure they knew that it was going to close at a certain period before, or do we just wait till we reach 60%, or, how does it work?
We did not put a deadline on it. I've been talking to one person, he's called a couple times. He says he's going to vote, just haven't seen anything from him.
So Martin, will you explain so we've actually reached out twice. We explained when the ballots initially went out, and then we went out a second time to try to encourage people to vote.
Yeah, I mean, the first one we mailed was in October, the end of October on the 25th. And we figured that because of the holidays, maybe they weren't voting, so we sent out another one at the beginning of the year. Got a lot more phone calls with this last round than I did on the first one, but I don't think we're gonna get.
I don't think so either. I know a couple people that live on that block, and one particular that's really involved, Rick from Mill. He was going to go door to door and ask all the neighbors to get in their votes too. And I mean, if they're not even reaching 50% too, it's I don't think there's a real valid support for us to do, to make something permanent is what I'm getting at. But I wanted to make sure that, everybody had a chance to, be a part of the process and have their voice heard and all that. So.
Did a copy of the policy go out with the ballots?
It did not.
Like, do folks know that
I did
it's a
explain it
60%
to her.
requirement?
I did explain that to them, and we do have it available on our website.
Yeah. Okay.
So what happens next? Do we have to take action to, remove the barrier, or is it just pretty much done now? Do we send notice to them saying that what the results are, all that?
Yeah, that is the intent.
So we send out the notice saying, hey, and then do we give them a time when the barrier is going to be removed based on our results?
Yeah, that's usually what I'm thinking is I'll send a letter out, explain what happened to the results and schedule with the shop on when they could remove it.
Okay. So when we send out, I know, are we going off county records? I think I asked this once before, but are we going off county records of where the owner actually lives as opposed to, sending it to the resident, or are we doing both?
Well, we send them everything, but the voting was just for the owners of the properties because we were going to assess them $200 about.
So then we send that to wherever they live or whatever PO box they have on county record or whatever we've got on them.
Right.
Because there's a fair amount of rentals on this road.
I could go back. I'll show you which ones were the rentals.
I just want to make sure that we, completely, because we've been dealing with this for,
4 years.
yeah, for quite a while. And, I want them to, understand that, we can't continue to, because it's just a feeling, but I think this is probably likely going to be revisited in the future. Because, again, that's just one of those roads that is just a straight shot for, a quarter mile. And I don't see how, without a calming device that they're going to get those speeds down. But if they can't agree on it, then.
Well, as
I agree also, but that's a lot of red too, though. It's sometimes people think they know the pulse of their community and but I mean, that's a lot of red in a long period of outreach and promoting this and getting the word out.
Yeah. So from our perspective, based on speed guns and speed measurements, the speeds are not excessive. That doesn't mean that there's not occasional person speeding through the neighborhood, which, undoubtedly there is. But, a person's perception of what the speed is and what the actual speed is quite often two very different things. We've encountered that where, one of the police officers was up in another neighborhood that asked for this type of study. And he was there with his speed gun and standing there with the neighbor who's complaining about how much speeding is going on. He goes, there goes one right now, and the police officer shot his gun there. He's doing like 30 miles an hour, and so, that's why it's important to actually quantify what's going on.
Yeah, I was on Slater Kinney a couple weeks ago. And I was doing 27 miles an hour, and some guy yelled at me to slow down.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm showing you this map is what we did is the blue dots, the property owner does not have the same address is the real address. So we figured those are the rentals.
That's like 15 of them.
Yeah. And the voting neighborhood was 40 parcels.
Robin, for context, part of this was there's people on the street, that are grandparents, they have grandkids, and so they'd like to feel safe with the grandkids out front, and some of them just don't. So that was part of how.
And some of the families have disabled or kids with challenges, so they have to be monitored at a more so than kids with less or no challenges.
Is there any parallel process where the city makes a decision on where to place traffic calming measures? Or is this the only way we do this?
Well, it's a citizen initiated process. If the citizens feel that traffic calming is needed and it's just for residential streets, this doesn't apply to arterials, then we go out and we do a speed study. And,
Okay.
based on the results, if it meets the threshold, then we'll, Martin with his expertise and Roger will look at what's the best type of device and where it should be installed, and then we go install it. If I recall, this didn't even meet that threshold for speed, but we just wanted to take that step to satisfy the
People
neighborhood.
still had concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the type of device and the location of the device, there are some options, but we try to make it the best possible option to suit the need. And I don't know, did that help answer your question?
Yeah.
So it looks like by the numbers, we're going to have to, we're probably going to be moving on from this and taking that device down. And if we end up having to revisit this in the future, it'll be because the residents who do want it, we're able to convince the residents who either didn't vote or voted against it.
What I plan to do is after we do this, I talk to the traffic officer quite a bit, so I'll tell him to keep an eye on Lebanon Street also.
City manager?
Just want to add one important factor too. The reason there is this process and traffic calming policy is to sort of recognize, is this a community problem or is this a neighborhood problem? And that's why there is a 50-50 proposition, because there's an argument to be made. If you live in Horizon Point, why is my tax dollars going toward an improvement in another neighborhood that I may or may not even drive through? And so that's why there is these thresholds to make sure, one, does that neighborhood truly support this improvement? And then secondarily, are they willing to then tax themselves to participate, which is typically a 50-50 proposition. And then fortunately, sometimes we find out that the neighborhood problem from a traffic perspective is more localized, meaning that the neighborhood sometimes generates their own issues. So that's why the policy is in place that has these sort of threshold milestones to meet.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So with that being said, Martin, can you just share with us again your next steps?
What we're going to do is send a letter kind of letting everyone know what the vote was and what's our next steps going to be. And I'll send that to the residents and the property owners.
Is there kind of a timeline that we can know that we're going to revisit this? Would that be March, April, May?
Sure. Yeah, I could set up any kind of tickler and redo a speed study and do another traffic count.
No, not to redo the speed study, but to say that we've satisfied the requirements of our policies And then, I mean, we're going to have to take it down. Is that right?
That's our recommendation, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Martin, I think they're asking us, we would just report back at a future transportation committee meeting that we've reported back to the neighborhood and the diverters are no longer in place.
Okay, sure, absolutely, sure.
Scott has the words.
Do you need action on that recommendation? Do you want us to take action on it?
I mean, you're following the policy, so there's really no action to take. So,
Well, I support it. I think it ran through its course. I mean, 4 years. Yeah, there's COVID, but there was a lot of participation. There was a second reminder. It rallied a lot of the neighborhood residents to go and engage with the people that weren't responding. I think it did its job that it's meant to do. And I think we satisfied everyone concerned, and sometimes it just doesn't go your way. And again, people sometimes think they know what the rest of their neighborhood wants, but sometimes they don't. And this, I believe, proves it, because there's a lot of red on that map, regardless of how you feel on a calming device or not. It's just the facts. So
Yeah.
what else can you do? It was a fair process, and everybody got to be heard, and but we just move forward.
So Martin, I know that once that device is removed, we are probably going to get, emails about it. And so that's what I was trying to get an idea of, when you remove the device and we start hearing about it, just kind of trying to, for the committee to know and the council to know that, hey, you may get some response based on the fact that this is over, the device is removed, and there may still be people who are unsatisfied with the result.
Yeah, what I can do is when I send the letter out, I'll CC all of you on that.
Okay. Does anybody have any further on this agenda?
No, just thanks to staff and everyone involved for, basically making it as legitimate and open process as possible. Transparency through and through here. And that's, whether or not something goes your way, you support it or not, as long as it's a transparent and fair process where everybody has the same opportunity to speak in, against, or for, and then it runs its course, then, at least you can have faith and respect in the process, and so that's, I think we did a good job here. So that's,
I think so too. I think we definitely demonstrated that, we're listening, we're willing, we're doing, and we are, taking every step that we can to make sure that your needs get addressed. And I hope that the residents of the street feel that way. Okay, if nobody has anything further on that, let's move on to our next agenda item, the 2021 to 2022 snow response from Scott Devlin, our operations manager. Hi, Scott.
Hello, everybody. The council members and city manager, how are you doing today?
It's a good day. No rain.
It's true. It's a great day.
Thanks, Scott.
Let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, you guys got that?
Got it.
All right. Yeah, so this is just a briefing to you guys about our response to the latest snow event that we just had, December 25th to January 3rd. What you see in this picture here is this is Carpenter Road, the 55 and older community place on the left-hand side, and then Safeway on the right-hand side. You can see the road conditions here look pretty well. This was a nighttime picture that Scott Ager took, so I stole that from him. Rolling into this storm event, it looked like it was going to be a long, cold event that initially looked like the initial snow amounts were going to be fairly small. So the response to this event is a little bit unique in that, every snow event's a little bit different. So I'm going to roll you through this here. So initially, right off the bat, staff volunteered because this was a Christmas weekend. We put staff on standby duty. It was initially kind of difficult to get people who wanted to work over the holiday, and so we offered up standby duty. with the expectation of 1 to 3 inches of snow on Saturday night, and then going into the week with cold temperatures. Staff from all divisions stepped up and helped out. So we had water, wastewater, transportation, of course, was the major lead on this, and Parks Department helped out also. So our initial snow response, crews were called in Christmas night at about 7 o'clock at night to start de-icing the roads. The forecast that night was 1 to 3 inches, so we started hitting that with de-icer right off the bat to kind of get ahead of the game. And those same crews came back later on the day after Christmas on the 26th. So on Sunday itself, as we rolled in, what happened was crews stayed in until about 3 o'clock in the morning, de-icing, got all the roads really good condition, and then went home to sort of see what was going to happen. The snow stopped falling, and we had this sort of transition time. So during the day, as we came through, we got a little bit of sunshine. The sun warmed up temperatures outside to about 32 degrees, which is still freezing. We were well aware of that. We were a little bit short-staffed, and then we saw the forecast was a snow starting around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we started calling the staff in to try to get ahead of the game, and having a little bit of an issue bringing staff in on that day just because of the holiday weekend. And so we got a little bit behind. And what happened that day, we got a lot of snow really, really fast with really cold temperatures. And so we were able to get everybody in and get all the equipment running. We had 2 sanders, 2 de-icers, 6 plows going later on that day. Park staff really worked hard to keep Police Alley clear, and City Hall, so that was usable area. That was really their primary focus. And then also we had 2 more staff from the Parks Department came out and started plowing with the Transportation Department. Transportation at the time, they were short of staff. They only had 4. So to run all 6 plows, we had to use 2 people from another department. Immediately that night, on Sunday night, we went on 12-hour shifts. And so that started at 7 p.m. on Sunday night. Overnight, the crews really focused on improving traction at signalized intersections, roundabouts, and hills. That was their primary focus. Due to their plowing, sanding, and de-icing overnight, the roads were in really good conditions for the Monday morning commute. The freezing temperature and additional snow, we just saw this rolling through the week. We were going to get, 1 to 3 inches of snow, and then really cold temperatures, and then a little bit of snow and really cold temperatures as that progressed all the way through the week with no thawing in sight. As we rolled through, we continued to just de-ice and sand intersections and plow when needed. Going into the weekend, it was very interesting because we had forecasts that looked like it could get as low as 8 degrees. What I saw was 17 degrees going into the weekend. So the road temperatures were very cold. And even though it warmed up a little bit on Saturday, the roads stayed frozen, which just kept it very icy for us. The comparison to the 2021 February storm was we had 18 to 21 inches of snow that fell over about a 3-day period. And we did a lot of plowing. It was just getting the snow off the road, and there was plowing, 12 on, 12 off shifts, and then it warmed up. So we just kind of dealt with slush coming into that Sunday, Monday timeframe, where this event lasted well over a week. And even though when it warmed up, the temperatures were so cold for so long that we kept ice on the roads. But we did have less snowfall during this event, but colder temperatures. And we used a lot more product over this event also. But that just kind of reiterates for me that every storm is different, and we have to treat every storm differently, and our responses are a little bit different. So what do we use for materials? We used 43,000 gallons of de-icer. The cost of that de-icer is about 11 cents per gallon, which cost us about $4,700 to make that de-icer. We used 35 tons of salt at $165 a ton for a total cost of $5,800 for that salt. That salt we use for making brine, and we add that to sand when we sand the roads. So that's a combo use there. That product alone is good down to 15 degrees. So that's really good to know that it works really well down to 15 degrees. We used about 100 yards of sand during the storm for intersections at a cost of about $1,800. So we drove 5,600 lane miles with our equipment over that week, and 650 labor hours for the street storm response, which equates to $29,000 in labor costs. Here's a total cost here. So 650 labor hours was $29,000. Material cost about $7,600 for a total cost right around $37,000 for our snow response over that whole week. Crazy thing was, then we turned right back around, got a storm came right behind it with lots of rain. We ended up getting about 6 inches of rain on top of that snow melt, which caused flooding all over the city and the county. So storm crews continue to respond to that widespread flooding. This is on Rainier Road here, going under the trestle. So challenges that we faced during this event was just the availability of staffing over the 2 holiday weekends, over Christmas and New Year's. Getting supplies, our vendors actually closed down. So for us to get additional materials and sand was a complicated. We couldn't get a hold of anybody to restock. Luckily, we had enough materials in supply that we made it through. We tried to order additional salt, but we got really, really long lead times to get any sort of restock on salt during the event too. And then, of course, I mentioned the break. There was no break between the snow and ice event and our rain flooding event. So I wanted to thank the Lacey Police Department for their response and help and assistance throughout the entire event. They did an amazing job keeping the streets safe and communicating with us. Public Affairs for reaching out to the community and posting stuff on social media as we went through all these events also. Administrative staff at City Hall and the shop here for taking the phone calls and communicating with all of the different community members out there. And then, of course, all of our maintenance staff that put in tons of hours over that week and a half period. So that is my presentation. We'll stop sharing. You guys have any questions?
Yeah. Is that 650 hours beyond normally allotted hours? Like we have the normal 40 hours and people are taking leave during the holidays. Was that in addition to normally scheduled shifts? That
included our normal scheduled shifts of regular time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But there is probably some overtime in there.
There's
probably a lot of overtime.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of overtime.
I got something, if I may.
Absolutely.
It's not every day we get the big 4 Scots all together in one meeting, but Scott, or to the point where the Scott Johnson makes the other Scots look really good. But what I'm trying to say here is, with all the joking aside, you guys do a great job. I think some of the public has expectations that are a little high because we're not east of the mountains and it's not Spokane. It's not Kennewick where they got 24 inches in 24 hours. This is Lacey. People sometimes think our taxes are a little high, but if we were to fully fund the de-icing and snow plowing to the level some people expect, that would be a lot worse. We're very effective with our time and resources and employee hours, and I think this showed it. You put it out there and everybody stepped up on Christmas Day. That says everything about Public Works that people don't always consider or think of. When they're in their bed or they're enjoying their Christmas dinner or the Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, you guys are out working, making it safe, and to where when it's time to go back to work, people can get there safely, and just all around great job. And I don't think you guys get enough credit because you do it consistently every single time. You're a great example, not just for the region, but the whole state and the nation, for the amount of money we spend and the amount of employees that we have doing the work out there. So every one of you guys should be very proud. I'm proud for you. And this is one of the instances where, as a council member, I feel great about the job we do. And I talk to the public about it just like this. and remind them of things they don't think about when, because nothing ever goes super bad. And when it does, we're still on top of it and we get it taken care of in a timely manner. So again, great job, you know, all around. So I want to make sure you guys heard that, because a lot of people out there share the same feelings about it too. You just never hear it. So that's it.
Am I back on?
Thanks, Mike.
You
We
are.
can see you and hear you.
Okay. Had to switch devices, somehow I lost connection. I did have one quick question for Scott, if he's still on.
Which one?
Devlin.
Yes, sir.
Real quick, so when we get that water over that roadway, is it just kind of a wait and see, or is it like how do we can we pump that water out of there? What do we do when that happens?
Yeah,
I know it's not the first time.
Yeah, Johnson might answer this a little clearer, but yeah, so we wait and see. And then if it gets to a certain depth, I believe it's 6 inches deep, then we ended up closing that road down, putting road closed signs out. And then it's just sort of a waiting game. If it gets worse, then we'll sandbag it out. And we have a couple other options that we have to close that road. During this event, we had to communicate quite a bit with the county, because they own the other side of that trestle. And a lot of cars were coming from their direction. So we were working with them, trying to, put barricades on their side also. And then we check on that on a regular basis throughout the day, because people will move the barricades and drive around them. So.
Gotcha. Is there, when something like that happens, is there a safe place to pump water to, or do we have the?
Let me respond to that.
Yeah.
So, typically you refer to, you would look at pumping if you had static water, but this has a constant source coming in. So, pumping would not accomplish anything for us. The channel, the downstream channel, its configuration, its meandering and all that is what dictates the flow of water. So, there's no way to pump it. So a little bit of history. The last time we shut down Rainier Road was 2009, and we had 6 inches of rain in 2 days then, and it flooded. Only it did worse because it dropped down. Right now there's been more development. The fills from the development there, the links or whatever that development is, caused a blockage, which then with the flood allowed the area for those four fabricated homes just immediately north to flood. And at that time, there were no homes in that area. So there were no homes in the links. But in order to prevent further flooding to damage those homes, we sandbagged that area to put the water back in the channel. But with the sandbags across the road, we had to close the road. So since then, there was a fill built up that prevents water from flowing down into that area. So then the difference between the event in 2009 and today was that area wasn't being flooded. So we didn't need to sandbag, but we did need to close the road because of the height of the water. So this rainfall event, Doug Christensen, our stormwater expert, classified as about a 10-year storm event. It's obviously been about 13 years since the last time we had 6 inches of rain in 2 days. But going back to answer your question, yeah, pumps wouldn't do anything for us in this event because the governing factor is the downstream channel and its capacity to carry water away. And there's really nothing we can do about that.
Gotcha. Thank you for letting me know how that worked. As that was happening, I was thinking what are our real options? And I knew about sandbagging, but I didn't know if I thought pumping might be an option. I didn't know, what you just said, but I didn't have that information at the time. And I thought, I wonder if there is a safe place to relocate water, and how much of a challenge is water relocation. I know that it doesn't just happen, and but I thought because of all of that farmland nearby, or some of the terrain, that there might be a possibility that we could try to relocate the water. But I honestly did not know if we have that option, or how that would even, play out if we did.
Yeah, the hydraulics there are very complicated. You have culverts east and west of Rainier Road, and you have culverts north and south of the railroad bridge. So, yeah, there's really nowhere to send it to.
Gotcha. Thank you for that information.
Yeah, piggybacking on what Scott said, I was going to say the Mullen Road train trestle gets all the attention all the time, but there's the trestle on Rainier Road too, and I know we had crews out there as well, and you guys handled it as seamlessly as possible. It could have been it was an event, and it could have been real dangerous for a long time, and but you guys handle everything, as it comes our way. You just take care of it. So,
Yeah. Good job. We're fortunate to have a lot of flat surfaces in this city, and unlike watching people trying to climb Queen Anne Hill when they have an event, they always make the news. And so, like Mike said, good job. Thank you guys so much for taking care of us and being willing to get out there at midnight and 3 a.m. and make sure that our roads are safe as they can be the next morning for all the residents in the city of Lacey. Thank you. Well, it looks like that we have reached the
Our
end of
Councilmember
I have one more
Vasquez.
question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see you on right now, but
Oh,
there you are. Hi, Robin.
all right, you're on your phone, aren't you? Okay, I'll speak up. I had one question just about, you mentioned we used a lot more de-icer during this last round just because the length of the storm event was so much longer. Does that play any kind of havoc with our stormwater management when we have that amount of de-icer in the water that we're dealing with? Like, does the amount of sand or salt or de-icer that we used impact any of that work that we do with our water runoff? So
that the amount of salt in the de-icer is less than what you have. It's diluted to like a 23%, somewhere in there. So to answer your question, the amount of salt that goes on the road has no influence on water quality. But Scott Johnson can speak to, you put sand down, there's definitely a major cleanup effort.
Yeah, it takes a long time to get it all picked up with the sweepers and everything else. They've got to take several trips over to try to get the sand back up. But a lot of the extra de-icer was used. We were having a lot of problems with the ice on our roundabouts. So we put extra doses on those to pretty much to save our street signs and our street lights that they were taking out on a regular basis.
Yep. Okay, yeah, I was just curious if that had a negative impact. It sounds like the sand is just a problem afterwards. You got to go pick it up.
Yeah.
So the question has come up before, does our de-icer influence vehicles, as arresting issues? But no, it doesn't, especially in this environment. Just the old adage, dilution is a solution to pollution. We get so much rainfall, the minimal amount of de-icer that we put down doesn't negatively influence water quality or the condition of vehicles. So,
and how we use it too. We put it down on curves, bends in the road, stuff like that. If you notice, like we've been putting it down with the icy mornings that we've been having, you can see that on the straightaways, it's very rarely on the straightaways. You'll put it on intersections and stuff like that. So
the corners of intersections is where I noticed it. Even when we had ice pack, I noticed that right around the intersections had been ground or put sand down or salt.
Scott.
If I might, I really want to thank Scott and Scott for their effort. They obviously don't get much sleep during these events, and Scott had a full head of hair before Christmas. That'd be Scott Johnson, obviously. Scott Devlin had no gray. But I also want to thank Scott Spence and the council for their support in allowing us to just pull out all stops when it comes to, dealing with these events. Really appreciate all your support there.
very much so.
Well, I just want to add to, since all the Scots are speaking, that I hope this just really for the public, because I know the public sometimes gets frustrated. They can't get out of their driveway and they want to drive and go where they want to go. But I think, what Scott Devlin shared and obviously Scott Johnston is just the level of effort it takes to maintain, really the 60 centerline miles that we have in the city. That just includes our arterials and collectors. And when you think about putting 43,000 gallons of de-icer, when you think about 5,600 miles of roadway plowed, de-iced and sand, that is significant. I think people need to just maybe understand what it goes into doing or responding to a snow event. So appreciate all the efforts that we do to obviously make those roads travelable when we have an event like this.
Yeah, they have to make sure our crews get a good pat on the back because they do all the hard work.
They really do. They spent a lot of hours.
They did. They were
And
very.
the thing was, a lot of people were gone for Christmas, so the ones that were here that volunteered to come in and help was amazing.
Yep. So they come that next weekend. They were really exhausted. So
Yeah.
And then we had to fix the road on Rainier Road. Before the flooding stopped.
Okay.
oops.
All
That
right.
comes in twice.
2
4
Malcolm.
Scotts and 2 Malcolms.
We now have a majority of council. We need to,
So if we get one more person, we could try for a Scott Chateau here.
Okay, so I apologize for the technical difficulties today. I like to consider myself somewhat tech savvy, but sometimes it gets away from you. Like today. So it appears as though we've reached the end of our agenda, unless anybody has anything more for the good of the order. Thank you all for all your work. I know that, getting up at midnight, staying out till 3, scheduling guys, trying to see who can take a shift, all the pivoting and temporary things don't come easy. And I know that, everybody has to, to adjust, and, you find yourself waking up at 2 p.m. because you didn't get to sleep until 8 a.m. and those types of things. So thank you guys for all that you guys do, because you guys made it so that, people can get up and move around. And it's interesting because, sometimes it boils down to a convenience factor, but a lot of times it boils down to a functionability of, I like to think of emergency vehicles in these type situations. When somebody really needs help, are we able to make sure that, the road is clear enough for somebody to get there, and so you guys make all that possible. So and with that, having reached the end of our
I would say one last thing. It's happened for a long, long time. It seems like everybody, this generation today, has embraced the Terry Cargill work ethic of this is our home and this is how we do things, and we take care of our residents, and we conscious of how we spend their money, and we try to make it as safe as possible. It's been for a long time, decades. Like 4 or 5 decades. We've been doing this, so. The fact that you guys raise the bar and you keep it high and it stays there and everybody embraces it from top to bottom says everything about everybody. So, yeah.
Scott Devlin, would you mind
Thanks.
sharing your presentation with us for presentation to council for briefing?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Okay, and with that, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all for attending. Have a great day.
All right. Take care.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.